Coming up on Downloaded, Facebook Graph Search. Is this really a feature? An employee outsources his job to China. Has he got the right idea? Love those cat videos. Teens think Apple isn't cool. Do we care what they think? All that and a lot more on this episode of Downloaded. Hey, welcome to Downloaded. This is the show where we gather the most opinionated voices in the tech field today, focus all that energy on the stories that have impacting the tech world, and I promise you this will be a Lance Armstrong free zone. I'm your host, Jim Louderback. Joining me today, Christina Bonington, writer at Wired's Gadget Lab, and Rob DeMillo, the CTO of Revision 3. So it's great having you guys here.
Nice
it's awesome having you guys here. Welcome to the show. Let's get into the first story. Our friends over at Facebook made a big announcement, this press announcement. They unveiled this thing called Graph Search. Now, first of all, I haven't been able to get access to this brave new feature. Rob, have you seen it?
Nope, not at all.
Christina, have they given you access to it? So we are actually going to talk about this without actually having seen it. So we're just going to go on what other people have said about it. Rob, describe what Graph Search is.
The whole idea is that they're finally like taking all of this data that they've been collecting on all of us over the years and allowing people to use it for personal searches. But of course, ostensibly, it's for the advertisers to use to mine for recommendations and ad placement.
So,
but the idea is that I could say, hey, what does Jim like to do on Friday nights, and where does he like to hang out?
Isn't that a little creepy, Christina?
Yeah, there's some big privacy implications. Like everything you've liked, all the pages, all the photos that can come up. You know, you can search for friends in San Francisco who like eating Mexican food. That one's kind of innocuous, but you know, maybe something. You know, people have been showing examples of like, you know, people who are racist or something. You know, people that have liked, you know, some questionable groups and things. And you know, you've got to kind of watch what you've done on there.
So you can search all your friends' stuff. You can search through all that. You can actually combine a lot of different pieces.
Yeah.
Search your friends' friends.
Yep.
So I can search all your friends.
Correct.
This is going to be fun.
Correct. Yes. No, you don't want to do that. I got to sign off now. But the big idea is that the advertisers get to use it, right? They get to find out like what whole groups of people are using, and it's the first time that I think Facebook's got an actual monetization path that makes any sense at all.
Well, are they going to care? Do you think users are going to use this, Christina?
You know, they're trying to say that it's going to be really useful with dating, like finding friends of friends that, you know, you have shared things in common.
Everything goes to sex, and this is going to sex first. Okay,
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so that's a big use.
So the stock's up. Obviously, Wall Street seems to think that this is the best thing since sliced bread, too. Is this a good investment now, Rob? Would you put your money in Facebook?
Oh God, no. But you know, give it time. Give it a couple of years, and something interesting will happen. I mean, it's something that Google should be very concerned about, because this is
why. I mean, look, when I want to search the whole world, I don't care about my friends. When I want to search everything.
It's not you. It's the Clorox bleach guys. You know, it's everyone that's actually trying to do ad placement and targeted ad placement. Those are the people that really want to use this. And the more that you use it, the more you feed the graph, and the more the advertisers get money out of it.
Okay, so are you saying that this is the beginning of Facebook becoming basically the internet, and there's nowhere else we need to go at all?
No, but it is the beginning of Facebook actually getting equal footing with a gigantic advertising behemoth like Google.
Christine, if you were Google, would you be concerned?
Yeah, it's data that Google doesn't have access to. It's a completely different set of data.
Yeah. So it's fascinating to see what will happen when we all get a chance to try it. We'll come back and talk about it with actually knowing what we're talking about. We're going to move on to the next story. This story, I just love this story. U.S. employee outsourced his job to China and watched cat videos instead.
You're my boss. I shouldn't say this, but that's an awesome idea.
Isn't that brilliant? I mean, I love the idea of going and being like, I'll just get people to do my job, and I'm going to do the cat videos. Is this legit? I mean, come on, Rob. Can you really do this? You work with telecommuters. You work with programmers. Could you hire a programmer and have them just outsource it all?
If the job is not something that requires a lot of FaceTime and requires a lot of just sort of public exposure, sure, absolutely. Absolutely.
Christina, are you outsourcing your job? You're going to get somebody to write your articles for you over at Wired so you can watch, I don't know. I don't even know if you like cat videos. Do you like cat videos?
I love cat videos. I don't know if that would go over quite as well. I think maybe the language barrier might kind of introduce some errors in my stories that weren't there before. Might make it obvious it's not actually me writing those stories. But yeah, pretty clever. I mean,
if I was clever, I would have got like some guy from outside of Shanghai to come here for this show.
Sit in your place.
Look, it's clever, yes, but I mean, they ended up figuring it out on the first day, didn't they?
Well, it took them a long time.
Oh, it did?
Yeah,
Okay.
so they turned what they
turned
did.
the VPN on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so this guy's been VPNing back and forth to some little podunk town in China for a while, and the IT people at whatever company this was turned on a VPN security system, and they started to notice that the guy who was logged in sitting at his desk was coming from a signal sitting in China. And they thought at first it was a problem with the system, and then at second they thought it was some sort of hacked security problem coming in from China, and then they started putting it all
But you
together.
could have designed a system to get around that if you had known, right?
Yep.
Yeah. How would you do that?
You'd outsource it.
And watch cat videos. Are we going to see more and more of this? I mean, actually, you know what? Here's a question. Christine, I'll throw this to you. Is this wrong? Is it wrong? Like, if somebody's paying you to do X, right, and you figure out a way to get somebody else to do it, it's like Tom Sawyer painting the fence. If the results are the same, does it matter?
Oh, I think, it comes down to ethics, and, your employer should probably know who's actually doing the work, but, I mean, yeah, it's still clever. And I mean, if you can spend your time better ways, maybe if he was spending his time, architecting some more robust systems and, passing off like all the really tedious tasks off to someone else, and he was working on, really big things, I could see that a little bit more. But just passing off all of his work just so he could, laze around and watch YouTube all day is, maybe not the best use of his time.
Yeah, well, the problem is also if you're a smart employer, what you end up doing is you fire him and hire the guy that he was outsourcing to and save the money.
There you go.
Right.
And presumably the bits that you spend on the cat videos. We are going to move on to our next story, and I said this would be a Lance-free zone, but it's not a Te'o-free zone. And so you guys all heard about this story, the Notre Dame star football player, Te'o's dead girlfriend, a social media hoax. Big question here is, was he responsible for it or was he a victim of it? It's called catfishing. Christina, describe catfishing and what's going on here.
So, basically someone created this fake persona online. She just completely existed in the digital space, and he and some other, real people were interacting with her on Twitter, and, the media got a hold of it and was, passing it off as his real girlfriend, and he was interacting with her fake sister and stuff too. It's just like a huge, crazy thing.
Yeah, and so she existed in the digital space. I mean, the guy apparently had phone calls with her.
Right. And
so that's not
yeah.
necessarily digital, I guess,
Yeah.
as a digital phone call, but somebody was there. It wasn't just a computer doing it.
I mean, unless he just said he had phone calls and said that she came to visit, and because some reports said she actually came to Hawaii and visited the
Yeah.
family.
This is what I don't understand. So how? So I get the whole catfishing thing. Why is she labeled the moniker girlfriend? Like, where did that come from?
Right.
And why did he go along with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think he had to be in on it the whole time. I remember being like a teenager, and my friends and I would get online, and we'd be on AOL Instant Messenger, and we'd make up some story and talk to other people and be like, oh yeah, we're twins or something, and talk to them. And yeah, it's so easy to create some fake, especially if a couple friends are involved, some entire fake person, and just go along with it. And maybe it got a little out of hand, and they got tired of it and decided to kill off the character.
Yeah. Well, I will say though, and you should know this, you went to Ole Miss, which is a huge football school. The life of a college football player is a fairly rigid one, right? It's classes and it's practice, and this is a Heisman Trophy winner. So you know that his days were programmed practically every hour, and he was taken care of. And I wonder if he just was naive.
I don't think so. I think he had to be in on it.
Rob?
Yeah,
in on it?
I think Naive is dead a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, naive is dead. The other thing about this story I find fascinating is the whole Turing test aspect of it. Okay, so imagine that he was in fact duped, which I still think there's a potential that he was duped, but the Turing test, which says that you put a computer on one side and you have somebody chat with the computer, do they actually get that this is a computer or do they think it's a real person? I think we're at the point now where computers and bots and things like that, I mean, they can actually fool you into thinking that they're real. So does this spark a whole new style of Facebook person and friend that are actually fake?
If you're 14 years old and living in your mom's basement, sure.
Well, is it a bad thing to have a fake friend?
Yeah.
I had imaginary friends when I was
well,
growing
that's the
up.
thing. It's like, yeah, it is a little bad because it's, I mean, yeah, when you're 6 and you have an imaginary friend, that's one thing. But when you're like a football player,
20 and a Heisman
it's
Trophy winner,
something's wrong.
I don't know. I think the rise of digital personas that are very difficult to sort of differentiate from a computer is really interesting. Are we going to see an internet populated more and more with trolls and bots and other things that are actually computers, not humans? What do you think, Christina? Or am I just totally out of there?
No, I mean, we already are. There's so many, like there's fake Twitter accounts that are just completely robotic, completely AI based, and pass the Turing test. They sound like they're a real person. They, tweet coherent 140 character messages, and they can respond. They can reply people, and it makes sense. And there's a lot of fake Facebook accounts too. They're just fake people. Some of them are used for testing for apps and websites and stuff. People create these fake identities to use to test their products.
I love these fake Facebook ones. I get them all the time, and I accept everybody. Although now I'm up against the limit. You get the woman who's got the beautiful face, and she keeps on messaging me going, "Hi." I'm like, "Oh no, unfriend, unfriend, unfriend." I will say on this story, I think we're going to see a lot more of this sort of thing happen, whether it's fake or not fake. We don't know what's going to happen on this story. I just think it's a fascinating story, and right or wrong. Is this bad for Notre Dame? I mean, I'm just thinking about it. Is it bad for Notre Dame?
I think it's bad for football.
Why?
Well, because you weren't going to bring up Lance, but we'll bring up Lance anyway. So there are these people that youths aspire to, and they treat them as heroes. And popping a hole in the hero myth is one thing, but seeing somebody commit outright fraud, it's pretty bad.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, look, we'll see how this develops. It's just, I just think it's in the end, it's sad, but it also shows how computer personalities can actually fool you into thinking that they're real if that actually happened. Let's move on to a story, Christina, that you covered this week, which I thought was really interesting around teens saying Apple's not cool anymore. Apple may be cutting back on the number of screens that they're buying, certainly for the iPad 10, but also on some of the parts for the iPhone. But you took a look at it and you said, this waning popularity may be a little bit overblown, right?
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of factors going on. So as far as like the supply chain stuff, Apple's cutting back on orders. A lot of that could have to do with just the fact that they don't need to place so many orders because the production process has improved enough that the yields, like how many of the parts are being made, has improved enough that they can cut back. And then also, if that happened, a while back, and they've got stockpiles of displays and batteries and stuff, then they can kind of taper off on their orders.
Or maybe they're moving to just-in-time ordering, right? Where they can get a little bit closer. They don't have to have that huge inventory in stock. I know Dell did a really good job of that at one point where they were really able to save a lot of money that way.
Right.
Well, but do you think the popularity of the iPhone among people under the age of 25, is it as strong as ever? Or, and I bring this up, Rob and I both have the new Nexus 7, which, look, I am not the teen demo, obviously, but I think this is an awesome phone.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole smartphone landscape is just really different than it was like even 2 or 3 years ago. That there are really legitimate, really good alternatives to the iPhone. And so, whereas before, if you wanted to be hip and have the coolest phone out there, you had to have an iPhone. But now there is like the Galaxy Nexus and the Nexus 7 and all these Android and even Windows Phone devices that are really cool and they look good and they work well, and you're not going to be a nerd or if you have one of these instead of an iPhone.
But I thought you were about to call me a nerd. So I was really worried about that. Rob, you recently wrote something on your blog, Notes from the Rocket. For the record, why my iPhone is in my drawer. Do you want to tell us why your iPhone is gathering dust?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons. I wrote that blog post because I keep getting these questions. I do have an iPhone, a personal one that I use for work because we test all of our applications on it and this. But my personal phone has been a Nexus device for many years, and now it's a Nexus 7. And the reason I don't use the iPhone is this giant blog post boils down to really one point. It's really boring. It's really...
The iPhone is boring.
Really boring. There's nothing interesting about it. My iPhone looks like your iPhone, looks like his iPhone. Maybe you can change the wallpaper in the background. There's a lot of There's a lot of marketing hand waving going on with the iPhone that's been talked about ad infinitum, but they claim to be multitasking. They're really not multitasking.
So it's the conformity. It's the think different conformity that you're taking issue with.
Exactly. When you look back at Apple ads from like 10 years ago, they were trying to pop through that whole "don't be IBM, don't have the beige box on your desk," and they've just replicated that system with the iPhone, and it's just a dull device.
Christina, what's your phone of choice, first of all?
I do have an iPhone 5.
And so speak up for your iPhone. Come on.
Well, I think you raised some good points. I definitely agree the operating system is kind of stale. It hasn't really changed that much since the beginning. I think it's time that Apple needs to give it a big facelift. iOS 7, we need to see some big changes, or it is definitely, with the younger set and with people that have stuck with iOS for a long time, I think popularity will wane if we don't start to see some dramatic changes with the OS.
What kind of changes do you think we'll see?
I would like to see, I think customizability is something that people have come to value, and that's something you can really get in the Android platform, but, I think iOS, could still maintain like its usability, but still introduce, some degree of individuality in its operating system. And then, I don't know, just a little more fun. It's just like I would like.
It's not fun. You're right. Where's the fun?
Yeah, I would really like if the icons, they're just like stagnant. They just like sit there.
Yeah.
If they like had like subtle animations, so like the weather icon, it's just this like sun and it says like 73 degrees or something. Why doesn't it tell me like just in that little icon what the actual temperature is outside and whether it's cloudy?
Rob, what do you think they need to do?
Well, that's part of it. Every time you bring up customization of the phone, the iPhone, people kind of go, oh, you just talk about widgets, but it's more to it than that, right? It's an actual running computer with a running operating system that supports multitasking in a really proper way. And so you can have multitudes of things running in the background. Your systems get updated, your weather gets updated, your friend feeds get updated, and you can still be running Pandora and everything else that you like. There's a lot of changes that have to happen in the operating system itself on iOS, and there's a lot of changes that are probably even more draconian that have to happen inside of Apple to change their mindset. And part of the, if there's any truth to the teens are abandoning the iPhone for other things, they've got to change their cost structure. Because a lot of that is, I'm not going to give my 17-year-old son a $500 phone. I'm going to give them a $100 phone, and coincidentally, that $100 phone behaves better than the $500.
Well, that's the thing. It's also wicked expensive. We bought the Nexus 7 unlocked.
Yep.
Mine was $350. I assume yours was as well.
Yep.
Nexus 4, not Nexus 7. Yes, you have the Nexus 7 as well, which is also $250. But anyway, so the Nexus 4, if you want to buy an unlocked iPhone, it's like $700, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
What about that low-cost iPhone? Is that coming?
A lot of people are thinking that Apple is working on a lower-cost iPhone. It might have like plastic parts instead of the nice glass or aluminum that the iPhone 5 has. And especially if Apple wants to get into like with teen market, emerging markets, people that just can't, markets that don't have that subsidized cost that we get, $250 on contract. Letting people being able to pay $200 for an
a phone. Be interesting to see if those subsidies go away, but that's a different story altogether. Rob, what do you think about the cost model for Apple? Can they do it?
I don't think they can. You started this conversation by saying that maybe the reason for the cutbacks was because they had stockpiled parts, or they were thinking about just-in-time manufacturing, or something along those lines. Tim Cook is brilliant at this stuff, and if he had put together this large order, or ordered his organization to put together this large order several quarters in advance, and is now cutting back, the implication there is he actually believed that the sales would be a certain number that far out, and now he's realizing that they're not. So I think there is some truth to this. I think the media is saying teens don't like iPhones. It's not quite there yet, but it's getting there.
It's getting there, yeah, totally. Yeah, I want to talk one last Apple piece before we move on to the next story. And so Jason Calacanis has been writing a little bit about the iPad and the iPad 7, the iPad Mini, sorry. And saying how the iPad Mini is just this amazing device, and he hasn't used his bigger iPad since he got his Mini. Steve Jobs said, no, we don't need anything smaller. The regular 10 whatever inch iPad is big enough. I've been using the Nexus 7. I know you've been using a Nexus 7 as well. What's your tablet of choice? I have an iPad Mini and a third generation iPad. And so you're a great example. I think the 7-inch form factor is awesome. What do you think? I think it's nice too.
much more friendly. It's just lighter. You know, the big iPad, like, I feel like I need to be like sitting down at a desk or like in my bed or something to use it, but the 7-inch one you can just pop out anywhere.
It's so portable, right?
Yeah.
You can carry it everywhere. And that's the thing I think that that's pretty amazing. And so is this Steve Jobs and his sort of hubris of, oh, it's just going to be like this, and we're going to make one car and it's going to be black. Maybe that wasn't the right thing, right, Rob?
I don't think it was. I mean, I've got 3 tablets, personal tablets that I have. I've got a 2nd generation iPad. I have a 10-inch Asus Transformer Prime, which I love.
Yeah.
And then I bought this Nexus 7, and I told you actually a couple months ago that it suddenly dawned on me that I don't pick up the 10-inch tablets.
Yeah.
And I go right to the Nexus 7, and it has to do with the form factor. It's just there. It's always with me.
I carry that. I agree with you too. I have a 10-inch Galaxy as well, and I haven't used that since I got the Nexus 7. And I find myself, when I travel, I'll stick it in my back pocket and carry it around with me. It's always in my bag. It's much more unconsciously portable. I mean, okay, it's not pocketable like my phone, but it really offers, I think, a real tablet experience in a much smaller. And I was looking at it, and I have a new Kindle Paperwhite as well. I'm like, they're the exact same size. And so maybe Amazon knew what they were talking about.
Yeah.
Maybe. All right, we're going to move on to our last story. We're going to talk about the Dreamliner. This is the new 787 from Boeing, grounded based on safety fears. And the interesting, and the reason why this is a tech story is because basically it's lithium-ion batteries that are to blame. And we've had lithium-ion batteries in our computers for a long time. Notebook computers, when lithium-ion started coming out, it was great. It was much better for charging. They didn't have the memory effect, much better batteries. But there were reports of computers, of notebooks exploding. I mean, Dell had their 320i, 320L. It's one of the first ones that came out, and I remember it had a problem burning. Apple had problems with their PowerBook going up in flames for a while as well. So, Rob, you've built rockets, right?
I have, and I fly planes.
You fly planes.
That works out.
Let's say you're building an airplane. You've got this battery technology where if you overcharge it, it bursts into flames. Does it belong in an airplane?
Sure. So, I mean, so
I'm not flying with you.
I know. So here's the thing about the 787s. It's a new technology paradigm. Like everything about that plane is new. The avionics, the material that they used to build it, the things that they put inside to keep the passengers comfortable on long duration flights. You know, you've got higher humidity levels, and then they've got the lithium-ion batteries. And when those problems first came out on laptops and phones, a lot of that had to do with the fact that the battery ratio to the size of the compartment allowed the heat to transfer immediately to the outside of the compartment, causing things to burn. You're talking about a gigantic jumbo airliner, right? And putting the insulation and controls around lithium-ion batteries and keeping them in a state where they are not volatile, it's easier to do.
Well, it's apparently not as easy to do as they thought because there are problems, right, Christina?
Yeah, but I mean, I think, the thing is with lithium-ion batteries, I think like 2 or 3 out of like a batch of like 1 million or 2 billion or billion are gonna be bad and they're gonna like burst into flames.
Here's my problem with that statement. Are they? Like, there haven't been any issues. I know the plane hasn't been in the air that long. And secondly, this isn't a freaking surprise to anybody. They knew going into these purchases that these things were powered by lithium ion, and suddenly they wait until the fleet is in the air and running around before they call foul.
Well, no, the reason why they're calling foul is because they started putting them into operation, and maybe it's just 2 out of 1 million, but I don't want to be on that airplane where the 2 out of 1 million start belching smoke in the cockpit at 50,000 feet over Iceland.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely some tests that should be done before it's extensively used at all.
Well, and look, they did test. I will give them that. But is there something inherent about this battery technology, Rob, that's not safe to put in something that flies around the world?
Go get yourself some lithium and drop it in a tank of water and watch what happens.
Okay, what's going to happen since I don't have it?
It will explode.
All I have is wine to drop it into.
It will explode. It'll just start smoking away. And
okay, so I don't want to drop my airplane in water. Got it. What else?
Well, lithium is just inherently unstable, but it's
so is gasoline, by the way.
But thank you. So is airline fuel, right? And they've figured that out, right? So they've figured out a way to like keep those things, separate from situations that can cause trouble. And the same is true for the lithium-ion batteries. They are in compartments that are sealed. They are in compartments that are ejectable. And I go back to
they're ejectable.
Yeah.
It's like when you're flying, you hit a button, and then the flaming lithium-ion battery ends on an unsuspecting person.
Hopefully
on
in
the
the
ground.
Pacific, but yeah, basically. But So again, I go back to, this isn't a surprise to everybody. Why did they wait until this fleet was actually in service where it was an economic detriment to the companies that bought them?
Because it started becoming a problem. That's why.
Did it?
Well, it's a problem because the airplanes are filling with smoke. That's a problem. Right?
Are they filling up with smoke?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
In emergency landing. I mean, look, all I know is what I read. I haven't actually been on the plane that filled with smoke.
Okay.
Christina, would you fly a 787 right now?
That's a good question. I was trying to think if I'd been on one. I don't think
No,
I
probably
have.
not. They're very new.
Yeah.
Only United's flying them in the U.S., and
Yeah.
so there aren't a lot of routes here that are being used.
A lot of the Trans-Asian
Yeah.
flights are.
Yeah, and some like short, like lots flying them between a couple cities in Poland.
Really?
Yeah.
That's weird.
Like Krakow and Warsaw or something like that.
That's odd.
Yeah.
Would you fly it?
I mean, considering it's only United that uses them here in the U.S., I'd say probably not.
Okay, let's say that everybody used only 787s and your next plane was on a 787. Would you take the train?
I would probably just take the plane. Because
Yeah.
I think in both of the cases where there was smoke in the cockpit, they were able it either
Yeah.
happened on the ground or they were able to make an emergency landing. So it wasn't like the whole plane burst into flames. It was just
Yeah,
a
I'd be more worried
smoke.
about the guy next to me with the power book that's about to blow up. Rob, would you fly it?
Yeah, absolutely.
You would.
Yeah. Yeah, no worries.
Okay, so you don't think this is a problem. You think this is just BS, not an issue.
Yeah, I think grounding an entire fleet because of smoke coming into the cockpit, redesign the systems.
Okay.
All right. Bring
Redesign the systems, fix it, see what happens. All right, well, that's about it for Downloaded today. I want to thank you guys for joining me. By the way, before I do that, if you are on a 787, or if you think you might want to fly a 787, or you don't want to fly a 787, comments, let me know what you think. I'd be interested to know if you actually have flown on it and what you thought. I want to fly on one. I think they sound like really cool planes.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to take that risk. All right, that's all the time we have. Thanks a lot to Rob DeMillo, Revision 3, Christina Bonington from Wired Gadget Labs. I'm Jim Louderback. Thanks for joining us. We're here on the Tech Feed, so make sure you join us every time. Until next time, you've been watching Downloaded.